Welcome to the Lessons from the Leap podcast, where we showcase visionary entrepreneurs and leaders, sharing their incredible journeys and inspiring stories. Let's dive into the show.
Hello, and welcome to Lessons from the Leap. I'm your host, Gazanfer Mansoor. On this show, I get to sit down with entrepreneurs, founders, and business leaders to talk about bold decisions, pivotal moments, and innovative ideas that shape their journeys. This episode is brought to you by Technology Rivers. At Technology Rivers, we bring innovation through technology and AI to solve real-world industry problems. If you want to learn more about us and talk about any of your projects, head over to technologyrivers.com. Today on Lessons on Leap, we have Sarah Cornett. Sarah, welcome to the show. I will let Sarah introduce herself, share your background, and anything you want our listeners to know about you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm really, really excited to be here today and share my story. So I'm Sarah Cornett. I'm the founder and CEO of Global AI Advisors. We support clients on a global scale, really supporting with advisory services and education around AI. We support clients from industries like banking industry and finance to healthcare to government industries. We support with things like developing AI strategies, finding the best opportunities to leverage AI, and establishing solid and safe AI governance programs. We also do quite a bit in the education space, so developing teams to leverage generative AI solutions and also conducting AI leadership development training programs as well. But prior to establishing Global AI Advisors, I actually have experience working within Fortune 500 companies and implementing AI solutions. I've done this at leading Fortune 500 digital banks, and I've also done this with multinational banks and top airline clients as well. So taking in all of my experience in implementing AI solutions, I really wanted to start this business, start advising clients and companies from various industries and backgrounds and really setting businesses up for success when it comes to AI adoption and transformation. So that's a little bit about me and my experience.
Cool. Thank you very much. So you worked across banking, tech, and now run Global AI Advisors. So what was the defining leap that pushed you to start your own AI advisory firm?
Absolutely. So I will say implementing AI at the scale and at the enterprise level that I've worked in before at these really large technical companies was incredibly challenging. And there were a number of, challenges, not only even on the data and technology side, but also with, the change management aspect of AI implementation. It's incredibly challenging to implement these sophisticated, solutions at such a high level at the enterprise level, especially these highly regulated industries like banking and healthcare. So I just really wanted to take in all this information. I started seeing kind of typical patterns and things that would come up with implementation. And that really just sort of drove me to coming up with a strategic AI adoption methodology to really be able to support a number of clients at scale and also being able to do work internationally as well. So that's how I've, sort of taken all my expertise and everything that I've seen being a part of those large implementation projects and really being able to help a wider range of clients.
Thank you. So what is the biggest gap you see between AI interest and actual AI execution inside the organization?
I would say that there's a few, but definitely starting with a solid AI strategy is one of the biggest gaps that I'm seeing with implementation, really seeing success with your AI solutions and implementation. There was a recent MIT study that came out that, did some research and, really dug into these different, implementations and pilot programs going on, especially around generative AI solutions. And they found that around like 80 to 90% of AI projects actually fail to deliver expected business value, which is a shocking amount, is a really shocking number, but is actually something that I've seen happen many times. And organizations are sort of in this race and in this rush to become innovative and get on the AI bandwagon, so to speak. They're sort of grasping at different solutions and trying things out and piloting different products, but they're not coming up with solid business problems or business strategy behind the technology. So I think that's a huge gap what we're seeing in organizations today. But if you start with understanding your business objectives and understanding the strategy and the why behind adopting AI, you're really going to be set up in a much more successful path forward when it comes to AI adoption.
Cool. You raise a good point about 80 to 90% of the AI projects failing. And in our software development business, we do see the same thing because we are primarily helping healthcare customers implementing AI. So we do see the same thing. Any thoughts, any insights on why those projects are failing and what could be done to stop that? I know you already said one thing, strategy for sure, and that's the mother of everything. But is there any other thing you can share?
Definitely. I would say, and I'm sure you're aware of this as well, it's complicated, it can be complicated to, adopt and onboard these solutions. And from a technical perspective, right, you've got to have your data in the right place, you've got to have your technology systems talking together, but by and large, one of the largest, challenges and hurdles when it comes to the successful adoption of AI is actually on the people side of things. So, the technology and data is obviously going to be, complicated to get that right, but the people that are really driving these projects and are behind, some of these projects, there's a really large cultural shift and change management that needs to occur when you're adopting these large AI solutions. So, traditionally technology projects, they're part of the technology team and they're sort of pushed up from the tech side of things. And you partner with your various business units and things like that to move forward with the projects. But you really need that solid buy-in and strategy from the business side and really having the business input in with these solutions and having the business really be bought in and really aligned with the AI solutions and really wanting these AI solutions as well. So I think on the people side, there's the change management aspect. There's a big education aspect as well of, having these business owners and business leaders understanding the why behind AI and getting behind these AI, solutions because these business owners, leaders are making decisions about which AI solutions we want to bring on and which ones we want to implement. But if they don't have a solid education and understanding of the technology and what it can actually do and how it can actually add value to the organization, you're definitely going to run into some challenges there.
Yeah, good point about change management. People are reluctant, and this is a very common misconception as well because AI empowers people rather than replace, and
Right.
there's a fear. And in fact, it's in many type of projects where usually the team is reluctant because they feel like if this thing comes, they will be replaced.
Right.
But the reality is different. And if it is replaced, it's going to be replaced anyway. So it's just a matter of delaying it. So, any thoughts on that? How to get the buy-in from your people, or
Yeah.
how do you what strategies you can do to excite those people so that they are willing to implement those AI projects rather than pushing back?
No, definitely. Yes. And I think it all again comes back to having a solid strategy and vision for AI for your business now. So thinking of, whatever your business is, whatever industry you're working in, like how do you see the future of your business with these AI solutions? Are you seeing, solving any key problems throughout your organization, or could there even be new products or services that you start to offer within this AI future that we're living in now? So I think having a solid strategy at the highest level of your organization and pushing that down throughout your teams is really critical in just having overall buy-in within your AI vision for your organization. But then bringing your teams along with you, right? Finding those opportunities and pain points. Are there specific teams that are running into, challenges with keeping up with demand or any areas where they could really benefit from these AI solutions and really talk to them about how AI can really help them through their day-to-day, business and work and things like this. So finding those opportunities and workflows that are really going to matter and move the needle in terms of business value for your organization. And so that way you can really work with those teams intimately, helping them, get training and education around these solutions. I think really doing a solid bit in upskilling across your organization is going to help bring those teams along and really get buy-in from those teams because, and again, you want to be very clear on, are you cutting certain teams or replacing certain functions with AI solutions? Are you upskilling your teams now and having them work with the AI solutions? I think being very, very crystal clear about that is really going to help, bridge this gap and help with the change management process. Because like you said, people are afraid of this technology. They're afraid it's going to replace them and their roles. But I think if you're very, very clear about here is your role today of how that looks like with AI. And we're going to also help you get training and help you feel comfortable using these tools most effectively and safely as well. I think those are some good strategies to get buy-in from your teams.
Yeah, absolutely. The communication is key, just like in any other part of the business. That makes a huge difference how people foresee it. In our business, what we have seen, I think there's another angle that we look at it, which we try with our customers, which is very successful, is one of the things we suggest is start small and start slow. The moment you talk about, oh, we're bringing AI, it creates a fear. But if you just do one small project, start showing the optimization, it could be starting with just creating those GPTs, whether it's your Claude, whether it's your Chat GPT or anything, just start improving one process at a time. Once people start seeing it, they will get excited because you are still giving them the same thing. They already have 20 things in their plate and they are overwhelmed already.
Yeah.
They were supposed to work 40, 50, 60 hours. Now they could achieve the same work at much lower. And now they're achieving a lot more. So suddenly they start to see their own productivity and they're more excited because they're delivering now more. So doing one thing at a time or smaller pieces, suddenly you start seeing excitement. And this is, we have seen in one of our client projects where we just delivered something in 6-week time frame. And then their whole team was excited. And then they started coming into the meetings every week because now they saw something was working, which was not working before. And now they start bringing their problem. And that was a very interesting, like when you start seeing that team members are bringing, hey, what can we do with this problem? How can we use technology and AI to solve this problem? And that was very interesting learning for us.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I couldn't agree more. I think starting small is always really key with AI success. It's something I work with business leaders on this when we're developing strategies and prioritizing use cases. We first prioritize by expected business value generation, but then reprioritize based on feasibility because I've seen in these sort of big bang approaches where you're trying to do too much too fast, it can get really, really messy very quickly. So I think when like, as you said, just prioritize these small projects, get some comfortability and some confidence with embracing these solutions and really start to see the value like you mentioned there. I think when people are using the tools and they're seeing how valuable they are and seeing, how effective and efficient they can be, it just really starts to grow on and build on top of each other. So I think that's an excellent approach and starting small, getting those quick wins and starting to iterate on top of that.
Yeah. And you talked about in one of your Substack, you talk about 5 key strategies for competitive advantage. Can you put some light into that? And also, which single strategy deliver the highest return for companies right now?
Oh, I'll have to think about that Substack. I haven't looked at that in a while, exactly what those were. Competitive advantage with, I assume that was with AI solutions and what you can do with them. But I mean, there's a number of, when I talk about business value and opportunities to leverage AI, there's most people think of the efficiency gains and, really using it to cut time off of different projects you're working on and different opportunities. A lot of people think of it as cost savings as well. So those opportunities to use it for cost savings type of use cases, those are ones that really quickly come to mind. You think of, some in the call center kind of use cases and things like this. But there are also incredible opportunities to drive revenue with AI technologies, which is something I think some businesses may not be as aware of, but there are incredible opportunities. Like I think of personalization kind of use cases and one-to-one communications with customers. You can really get very specific in the communications and how you're talking to customers and being very, very personalized. But you can use those in things like customer service types of communications, but also cross-sell, upsell opportunities as well. So you can really start to drive value to your organization and, selling different products and services and solutions by doing some of those efforts there. So when I'm thinking of competitive advantage and using these tools to really drive value, those are some of the key places, but definitely don't discount revenue generation because there are incredible opportunities to leverage AI in that space as well.
Absolutely. In your AI advisory, you also talk about AI security and governance, right? Protecting investments. So, can you talk about any governance missteps you have commonly seen in in the enterprise AI programs?
Yes, definitely. I think, first of all, if you've not stood up your AI governance program, you definitely need to start to take a look at this. I think some organizations may get confused on, the difference in data governance and AI governance, which many organizations have been going through some steps in, quantifying, labeling, making sure their data is secure, safe, and reliable. But what AI governance does is really taking in that data that's fed into these systems and ensures your end-to-end AI systems are fully compliant. So if you've not taken steps in developing AI governance practices for your organizations, I highly encourage you to do this. Some organizations are further along with this, different finance industries, financial companies are, definitely developing in their AI governance. Technology is a bit further ahead as well, but some in, healthcare, government, education space are still trying to figure out what this looks like. But the AI governance is very critical in securing your AI solutions and ensuring that they are reliable and trustworthy. But one of the first places I recommend you start is developing your team. So developing a team within your organization from members of maybe your legal team, a compliance team member, your model validation team, data team, technology, cybersecurity. So really developing your core team that's going to be responsible for AI governance with your organization. And start first by understanding what regulations your industry may adhere to. If you are a global organization, I do quite a bit of work in Europe with, and they have to comply with the EU AI Act. So understanding what regulations adhere to you based on your location, your country, where your customers are located. In the US, it's getting a little bit messy and a little bit challenging with some states are developing their own specific AI regulations. I know New York and California have some things around deepfake technology specifically, but Colorado is starting to develop some really, secure regulations around AI. So you really want to start to map out, there's different policies and regulations are starting to build and starting to come up more and more every day. So good place to start is by understanding your specific industry, where your customers are located, and what are those regulations and policies and frameworks that you need to adhere to. So those are a really good place to start. But yeah, governance is incredibly key for adopting and implementing AI.
Yeah, and do you also work on the regulated industry? I saw banking. I'm not sure about the healthcare as well. Like, do you see any difference in terms of how these organizations behave when it comes to AI?
Yes, so I've actually been a part of I established an AI governance program within a Fortune 500 digital bank. So I have experience in doing this. This was several years back now, and I'd say most banks and financial institutions have some sort of governance, program that they've established. I'll say a lot of healthcare companies, I'm starting to talk to them now about developing some AI governance. I think a lot of healthcare organizations I speak to, they're very, very, hesitant and want to be really methodical about, what makes the most sense to adopting AI solutions. They're very obviously critical of HIPAA, right? Of, how do we make sure, we are compliant against our HIPAA regulations? What does that mean? They're dealing with very, very sensitive information and data. So that's what I hear from a lot of healthcare companies is they want to be very, very mindful and very sensitive because they are dealing with incredibly sensitive information. So they want to start with almost a governance approach first and laying down that solid framework and guidelines of how do we make sure we are safely protecting our data and it's being used in a safe way with these solutions first. So that's what I'm seeing in healthcare. They're starting to just get into this, but they're being very, very methodical about how they go about this.
Thanks for sharing that. So our company, we work primarily with healthcare. So, and that's where a lot of those conversations about HIPAA, PHI data, and I think it's the same in the banking as well. So when you have a personal data, and it's also same in legal and many other industries. So people are really concerned about their mm, protected data, and they don't want LLMs uh, to be trained on it. So, are there any strategies you talk about when it comes to whether it's internal data, not necessarily be regulated? Like even still, many companies have a proprietary data they don't want their people to be putting on the LLMs for training, and but they still need that as part of their daily work. So they have to leverage AI for that. What strategies do you recommend those companies, or is that part of the scope of work you do, or is that more goes toward technical companies, implementation company like Technology Rivers?
Yeah, no, it's definitely something I've supported clients through this as well and understanding, that trace of data, right? Of like how is that data being used? And some of the enterprise, license models, there's, ChatGPT, like enterprise license. I know a number of companies are rolling out Microsoft Copilot. I've done work as well with like IBM Watson. They have a very clear, button to check to say my data will not be used by these large language models and being used in any learning. So some of those solutions are allow you to be like really locked down and only using your proprietary business information, and it's not being used to train any large language model. So there are some great, tools, those enterprise solutions that come with that. There are also great tools. One is called Liminal that helps you really put in your business policies around, I can't use any PII information. If I'm a bank, I can't put in account numbers or any information like this. If I'm a healthcare company, these are the different data elements I cannot include, in any prompts or any information like this. But what Liminal will allow you to write the prompt, even if you make a mistake and accidentally write in an account number, for example, it will automatically mask that information within the prompt itself. So you can still continue on and continue with the prompt, but it automatically masks that information. So no sensitive data is being translated into those models whatsoever. So there are some really helpful tools in that to really help you, embedding your either business policies or regulations, whatever those specific guidelines are within the solutions that allow you to allow your end users to prompt really, really safely. So those are some great, great solutions there.
No, that's a really good insight. So I think enterprise version, and I hear that a lot. A lot of companies are adapting Microsoft Copilot. That's becoming a bit more standard for some of those organizations. Not that others don't. Like we work with healthcare, so we have BAA signs a business associate agreement, which is required in any healthcare company if the data needs to be HIPAA compliant. So any organization which will have access to your data need to sign that to protect that there will be a zero retention policy and not being used for this, audit logging, and all of those different rules. So I think, and most of these LLMs would sign um, mm, uh, Gemini, um, OpenAI. So we have worked with these, and they have all signed it. So that gives some level of protection. But then still, there's a data that you have your own data, and that's where I think when it comes to building those custom things, that's where on these applications we have seen like approaches like RAG, the retrieval augmented generation. That makes a huge difference because now your own data is tokenized and put it in a vector database. You're searching that and only giving that to LLM so that it searches the limited data and not getting access to your whole data. So things like that. So there are a lot of different approaches. So um,
Definitely. I've been hearing so much about these private sort of search functionalities. I think like Slack was in like looking into, incorporating this technology, like similar to this RAG system you're describing. But I like the notion of, especially these highly regulated industries, having your own internal sort of RAG systems. You're not relying on any third-party tools so that you can very safely and effectively search through your documents, search through your information, and not relying on these tools. Because I think so many tools that I'm hearing about today are coming up with their own, internal search functionality, it seems like. So, because it's a huge need and would be incredibly beneficial and very, very effective for businesses, users, trying to find the information that they need.
and how many of the cases, I mean, I don't need an exact number, but have you seen adoption of private LLMs more than these public LLMs? Or do you see, is it becoming a more norm or less?
I've been hearing in some of these larger financial institutions them building their own LLMs, and I'm like, okay, like fully understand the reasoning behind this. You've got all this sensitive information. They want to have full security of those systems end to end, but I think that's going to take a long, long time for these big banks and institutions to develop their own LLMs. I mean, we're talking probably minimum of 10 years to have these things fully realized. So, but I think but those industries as well and those companies are also, playing with, the co-pilots and chat GPTs to sort of test these things out in a very secure way. But knowing on the back end they're building in, their own sort of in-house LLM tools to be used in the future because, there's a lot of efficiencies to gain today within these tools that are ready to go now. But if they're thinking longer term of how do we secure this process fully end to end. So that's why they're investing in some of these LLMs. But it's good to leverage the tools we have now, but just do that in the most safe and effective way.
Yeah, yeah. So now that we are talking on LLMs, so there are so many public LLMs. So ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, Perplexity, Grok. There are so many options. Um, what are your opinion on those? How do you suggest your customers which one to use? Because
Definitely.
the default always go to Claude or ChatGPT. Um, so can you share some examples, give some ideas on where I should be using what?
Sure, yes. And you listed a few tools there that are probably, the most popular solutions. Everyone kind of knows about some of these solutions in the AI space, but there are, in fact, thousands and thousands of generative AI solutions in the market today. It's really an astounding amount of solutions out there. But what I always encourage, end users, people who are looking to experiment and try some of these tools is think about the problem you're trying to solve first. Like, how are you going to use these tools first? And then try to find the best tool that works for you. I'm seeing, the various family members and friends are playing with some of these tools, but they're using them as almost a Google search functionality, which is not necessarily what you want to use these tools for. Like, I think of if I want to search for something and I want, really factual information that I know is from a trustworthy source, I'll use a tool like Perplexity for this. If I want to do really deep strategy work and maybe some persona work and getting different perspectives and opinions on something, I tend to use ChatGPT for things like this. For helping with writing content, around my newsletter or LinkedIn posts. I use Claude primarily for this. So different tools have different strengths for sure. And so it really depends on how you're intending to use these tools and thinking about which tool actually makes the most sense to complete a specific task. So I always encourage people to start with the problem you're trying to solve first or task you're trying to complete and then find the best solution.
Makes sense. Yeah. So along that, obviously, there are different models within those LLMs as well. So, and most people are still not familiar with it. And I think as we were talking earlier, you mentioned that most people are still using it like a Google search. So yeah, if you want to add anything to that, that would be great.
Yeah, definitely. There these companies are, or almost in a race with each other to build the most powerful LLM possible. So they're always churning out these new LLMs, and it's very hard to keep up with. Which is the most powerful, which one I should use for this. I always, as a rule of thumb, try to use the most powerful model depending on, which tool I'm using. Just go ahead and get to the highest one that you can because it's typically going to come with richer data, more information. These models are just getting better and better. But you want to keep an eye out. They are testing for things like AGI, and they're starting to build to this sort of all general intelligence world. So some of them are trying to reason for themselves and make decisions for themselves. So some of those you have to be a little bit careful with how you're interacting with them and just like understanding how to use those models specifically. But I always just recommend just go with the highest model, the best model that they have, because they are getting better and better every day. When this technology was first released and brought onto the market, they are riddled with issues like hallucinations. Those hallucination rates are way, way down across the board across these solutions now. So that's providing actually false information when you're trying to ask a question. It's not providing correct and accurate information. So, but again, the models are getting better and better. So I encourage you to just try to use the most advanced model possible.
So you talked about hallucination. Is there anything users can do to reduce that hallucination? Obviously, models are improving.
Yeah, I think it all comes back to the prompt. So being very specific in what question you're asking and what you're prompting and being really, really effective with your prompt. So you want to try to think of, how am I providing as much context as possible within this prompt? Am I asking the right question with this prompt? Because really, generative AI at the end of the day, it comes from users prompting the tool and the tool giving a response back. So, there's ways you can really improve upon your prompts. There's great, classes in prompt engineering to help you write the most effective prompts possible. But I think that's how the user is going to get the best result back is to really come up with some sophisticated, the best prompts possible to get the best result possible. So, it can help some with the hallucinations as well if you're asking the right questions. But again, a lot of that comes on the back end data of what some of these models were trained on. If they weren't trained on the most up to date model as of November 2025, then you're not going to get probably the most accurate results. So, but yeah, I think from a user perspective, just try to come up with the best prompt possible when communicating with AI.
So the tip is to be better in prompting, get some training on prompt engineering, or uh, learn even from ChatGPT
Yeah,
how to do
yeah.
better prompting.
I think
So
foundations in generative AI, just general, education around training is really, really critical, just to really help you understand, what these models mean, what are the different solutions out there, and how I can use them, and how I can be most effective when communicating and working with these tools.
yeah. So uh, we're talking about learning. I know AI is moving so fast that even the books that are coming or have come probably outdated. What is the best place for people to learn about AI? Like we talked about, for example, whether it's a prompt engineering, whether it's about different models. Um, Naturally, people will just go to the LLMs about learning about the other ones, which could be biased as well because
Right.
ChatGPT is not going to tell you too much about the other one. I mean,
Right.
yes, it will, but maybe more biasness. So, any recommendation where people should go if they want to learn new technology, new AI? What is the best way for anybody to dig deeper into it, knowing more than just the basic?
Definitely, yes. I think, education is so key in this new world of AI that we're in. So even if you are, maybe you're a student in college and you're trying to figure out your major, or you are a seasoned leader in an organization, there's something definitely to learn more about with this AI, with these different AI solutions. So, there are a number of great courses, talk about prompting, there are a number of great online courses for prompt engineering. So, there's incredible resources out there. MIT, Stanford has some great courses. edX has some incredible courses as well around prompting. So helping you, with the foundations in generative AI, just helping you understand, the basics and understanding these generative AI solutions and how to most effectively prompt and use these tools. So the online courses are definitely something I would recommend. There are also some, great courses and programs around leadership in AI because, I think a lot of these, leaders and organizations, they're trying to, understand the best ways their teams can use AI, and leaders are making decisions about, about which tools we invest in and infrastructure and data centers. Those are really incredibly complicated decisions that leaders are making. And if these leaders don't know the difference in generative AI and machine learning, that's going to be a problem. So there's definitely some leadership courses coming out as well, courses around strategy and things like this, cohort-based courses. So I encourage you to look into those if you're in more of a leadership role. But even, just keeping up, like you mentioned, there's all these models coming out, there's all these news about, OpenAI enters a relationship with NVIDIA, and, all these things are changing all the time. I personally leverage a lot of newsletters to keep up with all this technology and information that's coming out. So there's some really great newsletters you can subscribe to, following on social media and things like this to just keep up to date on all of the news and changes of when these models are released, and things like this. So I encourage you to subscribe to some newsletters. I can come up with a few to send to you and share with you some of those. But Superhuman is one that definitely comes to mind as one that I am subscribed to. There's always great information that comes out of that newsletter.
Yeah, thank you. If you share that, we will put the link in our podcast details.
Great.
So what misconception about AI do you wish every business leader would stop believing?
Oh, that's a really good question. A misconception about AI, that every business leader would stop believing in. That's a great question. I think on one hand, I think probably the biggest thing is you can't just plug it into the wall and it magically works and solves all your problems, I would say. I think a lot of people think if it's something, you buy it, you get it out of the box, you plug it into the wall, and it magically solves all of your problems, right? I've personally lived through many different implementations of AI solutions, and it can be incredibly complicated to really roll these solutions out. We touch on all these aspects throughout this conversation on, from a strategy perspective to governance to implementation to education and training to change management. So there are so many complications that come with AI adoption and implementation. So you really want to work with, seasoned experts and people who have been there, people who are really going to set your business up for success when it comes to AI adoption and technology. I think a lot of businesses are trying to figure this out on their own. They're trying to, go through this process internally, but you're going to just keep running into the same roadblocks and pain points that other organizations have done before. So, I encourage leaders to look at different industry use cases, case studies, working with different industry partners who have expertise in that specific industry, specific technology, and really just gaining learnings from each other and from these experts who have done this before, and really, listen to them and like let them help you through this process, because you can't just plug things into the wall and they magically work. There's a lot of thought and a lot of planning and strategy and work that needs to be done to set your businesses up for success when it comes to AI transformation.
Well, one last question. What emerging AI capabilities excite you the most for the future of customer experience and decisioning?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think I'm most excited for multimodal AI, actually. So, and multimodal AI, for those who are listening, it is where you're getting different data points, different incision points for information and making decisions based on that information. So, the way I like to describe it is, imagine from a healthcare use case perspective, right? Some of us have wearable devices, right? You're getting data and information from that device. You've got information from your phone. Maybe you have a smart scale at home. So you're able to use all this different information about you and being able to make decisions about you personally from a healthcare perspective. So I think that's going to be a really incredible opportunities that are going to continue to evolve for the multimodal AI. I'm seeing that popping up a little bit more in 2026 is going to be something really interesting and something to keep aware of, because there's incredible opportunities from a customer experience perspective, as you said, to use this kind of technology. So I think I think multimodal AI is really going to start to develop some really interesting, unique use cases and opportunities for customer experience.
Yeah, glad to know that. I will check that out as well and we'll share with the audience as well. So, Sarah,
Great.
it's been great having you on the Lessons from the Leap. Before we sign up, mm, two quick things. One, can you share where people can find you and follow your work in AI innovation and enterprise transformation?
Absolutely, yes. So I am located in Charlotte, North Carolina, but I do business on a in a global scale. So definitely follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm probably the most active. I can share with you the links to my LinkedIn. My website has more information about my business and the work that we do. So, but if there's anything at all, happy to connect with you. Share some thoughts about different strategic perspectives. Different industry use cases and things like this. But yeah, I'm happy to share those links within the meeting notes with you. But LinkedIn is definitely the best place to keep in touch.
Cool. And is there any success story that you want to share with our audience? Does not have to be specific, could be anonymous.
Oh, okay. This is coming at a really good time, actually. I sit on a IT advisory board for Mecklenburg County, which is the surrounding county in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. We just did our annual report, which I was one of the presenters and speakers of this. So we presented to the Board of County Commissioners of Mecklenburg County. We just did this just this week. The presentation went extremely well, but what we do is provide guidance in the IT department for the county in some ways we can find some real efficiencies and provide recommendations. And I spoke on AI transformation and leading an AI transformation for Mecklenburg County, and it was received incredibly well. The board had really thoughtful questions, but the board seems, very eager to continue in this mission for AI transformation, being really thoughtful about this. And so they were very happy and confident with our report, and we're very grateful for us to helping lead the county into the next phase of AI transformation. So definitely was a highlight for me this week.
Awesome. Good week then. So
Yes.
thanks again. Thanks for having you on Lessons from the Lead. I'm sure our audience have got learned so much more about AI and a lot more smarter after listening to this podcast. So thanks again for being on the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Lessons from the Leap podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'll catch you next time.